Hey, from my chef's kitchen in Williamsburg, Virginia, I'm Chef John Gonzales. We're going to make our famous skillet baked cornbread recipe today. Really super fast, probably the fastest bread you could make. Now, we start with some yellow stone ground cornmeal. You can use purple, pink, white, any of the colors that they've extrapolated out of Indian corn you can make. I just like the color of the finished product when we use this yellow stone ground stuff. So now, what I like to do is weigh it. I think the recipe is a cup and 3/4, and in fact it is, but I know that to be 9 ounces. So I'm gonna get 9 ounces of cornmeal here. The weight and the scales don't lie. Measuring cups do kind of give you a false read sometime, depending on how much you pack into there, or how you level it off and all that. So the scales, right at 9 ounces, we'll start with our dry ingredients. Yellow stone ground cornmeal, right? We'll go to some optional sugar. I got this recipe from a guy from Charleston, South Carolina. They don't put sugar in cornbread down there, so it's completely optional. And this is not a sweet cornbread as a finished product. If you like sweet cornbread, go ahead and double the sugar to 2 tablespoons. I'm just putting in 1. Now, we're gonna use some kosher salt here. Kosher salt's really clean salt. By definition, should have no additives whatsoever. And we use Diamond Crystal brand. And then I'm gonna switch up here, get some baking soda, regular old baking soda here. Baking soda is interesting stuff. It's considered in science, in food science, to be a base. In order to activate it, to cause this carbonation, which is gonna give this bread some lightness and airiness, we need to introduce some acidity. I've got some here open for science experiments. The stuff I use for baking is always in an airtight container. Here's a little helpful hint. You open up your spice cabinet, or where you keep your baking ingredients, and the one with the Ziploc baggie would be the one you want to use for cooking. They recommend as a deodorizer, you throw this away every 3 months. So it's not doing your cornbread any good after 3 years. Throw it away, start over. 2 for $1. As much as we use here, I still use the smallest boxes possible. But here's a good example of what this stuff does. It doesn't do anything in water, so I'll add some of this to that and give it a stir. But look what happens when we introduce some acidity to this. You have to have acidity in your recipes, right? Or you won't get the carbonation. Now we'll gain some acidity in this recipe from the lactic acid that's in the buttermilk. But we'll also gain some acidity from baking powder. And we use a good aluminum-free brand. This has baking soda in it, the stuff we just talked about. It's also got monocalcium phosphate in it, which is an acid. So you've got the acid and the base in baking powder. What's nice about the monocalcium phosphate is that it's there to activate the soda initially, and then after it gets hot in the oven, it activates itself and you have a second rise. It will start to carbonate on its own when warmed. So you have 2 activities. That's why it's called double action. So sugar, salt, baking soda, baking powder, real easy. No lumps, because none of these ingredients got wet. And now we will add the wet ingredients. 1 grade A extra large eggs. I like extra large. They equal about 2 ounces in liquid, so it helps to have the extra large egg for doing math in ounces. Now, we'll add the buttermilk to this, and this is whole fat buttermilk. You can use 2% or 1% or no percent, but know that every time you take the thickness out of these dairy products, naturally you will have to add back thickening agents like modified food starch or guar gum or carrageenan or sometimes pectin in yogurt. So try to find the whole milk, buttermilk. And these bubbles that are forming are now from the chemical reaction of that soda. All right, so we make sure it's all good here. You can see this is nothing more than pancake batter, and this recipe makes absolutely delicious pancakes. Same batter, same recipe. Same cast iron skillet, just smaller puddles. Now, I've got a cast iron skillet preheating in the oven. Very important. This is the longest part of this recipe, is getting the skillet hot. It's at 450 degrees, it's smoking. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of butter to it or thereabouts, and let this melt. We'll swirl it around, coating the edges nicely. The entire surface of the skillet. Don't do this with a wet towel. Not fun. All right. You can see the butter starting to brown and turning to what they call beurre noisette in French, the culinary term, which means butter hazelnut. So we're going to get this butter to the color of a toasted hazelnut, beurre noisette. Beautiful. We're going to add the batter to the middle of the pan, and as it goes into the middle of the pan, it's going to push out and push the butter out to the edges, ensuring deliciousness and non-stickness. You got to do this in cast iron. You can't do this in Teflon because of the gassing out of that Teflon coating in the oven while it's preheating with nothing in the pan. So back to the oven for this. Now this will take about 12 to 15 minutes, 14 minutes, maybe it's something like that. I'll watch it. Again, right at 450 degrees. I'll set my timer here for split the difference, 13 minutes, and we'll check on that. Okay, so like I said, anywhere about in between 12 and 15 minutes depending. Sometimes I make a double batch. I have 2 skillets in. I've noticed that it takes about 15 minutes because we do this every night at a chef's kitchen. Let's check it out. Looking good, a little domed, level. All right. Just let it fall right out of there. There it is, the best, quickest bread you've ever had. This stuff is so fast. We went through it piecemeal, but if you have all your dry ingredients in a bowl already mixed and your skillet already hot, the 5 seconds it takes to crack 2 eggs and add the buttermilk is how long this recipe takes. So let's cut into this. I like a little serrated knife here. We'll cut it into 12ths, in half, in quadrants, twice again. Serve this stuff up fresh, but it's really good even later after it's rested a little bit. It's even good the next day. A little dollop of butter on here. I like some, well, this is really good unsalted butter. And then I like a few cracks of really good gray sea salt from France. Maybe some delicious honey on this. Now, what I like to do after that is make sure my skillet is cleaned out and ready for the next time. It's much easier to clean all this extra fat, butter, and stuff out of this skillet while it's hot before we put it away. So the skillet's ready. We're ready for the next one. Here it is, skillet baked cornbread, a chef's kitchen from Williamsburg, Virginia. Thanks.